What is up, guys? Welcome back to Tidal Gardens. So here at Tidal Gardens, we do a copious amount of shopping at Amazon. I'm addicted to the convenience, what can I say? So Prime Day's coming up, and I thought I would kind of like look back at my purchase history and like look to see what kind of little doodads that we got on Amazon that might make sense for you. So let's take a look. Let's take a look first at this vacuum squeegee. Now, this is made by a German company, I believe, Karcher. I forget exactly how much we paid for it. They're about like 90, 100 bucks right about now. All the affiliate links will be in the comments below. It comes with both like this spray bottle that has a pad and this vacuum squeegee itself. The really nice thing is in the greenhouse, we really wouldn't care if we just squeegeed off a glass tank and it just ended up on the floor. Here, we don't really want to be doing that. That's like a slipping hazard and whatnot. This guy's really good for sucking up all that excess water that's on the glass. I have to warn you though, this thing sounds like you are opening another dimension to some hell planet, okay? So, fair warning, okay? So, spray down the tank. It's really good for just getting off all that salt creep on the outside. Doesn't sound bad yet. And all the viewership is gone right there. But it does a really good job of keeping all of that water kind of contained in here, and it's a really easy thing to empty out in the sink later. So, first thing, Karcher vacuum squeegee. All right, next couple of items. I have fallen in love with these Rubbermaid stock tanks and Rubbermaid carts. So we kind of have to do a lot of maintenance in bulk for the farming systems. And sometimes it is as simple as just moving a bunch of frag trays from one point to another. Sometimes it is dipping them all at once, that sort of thing. Or in this case, we're just soaking live rock that we had sitting outside, and we wanted to kind of de-spider it, or whatever the heck has been living in that live rock for months sitting outside. So they come in incredibly handy, and the ability just to move around the space with these guys has been tremendous. Now, let's go and take a look at one of our little intake systems, because what we started to do was anytime we even bring in any new corals, we just want to set up one of these things and run it for about a week and go through all the dipping procedures and whatnot before we even introduce it. The stuff that we're looking to flip, it's not even stuff that we want to culture long term. That's for like a real deal quarantine setup. But just for that initial intake, being able to observe it for a solid week in something like this, it's an amazing advantage. All right, next on the Amazon shopping list, we have these Marineland polishing filters. I got turned on to this product by the guys on Reef Beef, Ben Johnson and Rich Ross. I had never really heard of these things. I used to use back in the day a polishing filter called like a Magnum 350. It's like a canister. But this is kind of the same sort of thing in a smaller package in powerhead form. So it has your canister there, but it uses these pleated micron filters, and they rate these things for about 90 gallons. That's a little bit ambitious, I think. But for smaller cleanup projects, these things do a really, really good job. So in those Rubbermaid tubs that we talked about earlier, we'll use something like this. Or in the case of trying to like polish up or clean up a sump that we've disturbed, we'll probably put like 3 of these guys in there and just get them going. If you've never used a pleated filter like this, I don't know the exact micron size. Maybe it's like 100 microns. They fill up with debris really quickly. So the idea is that you put it in, you run it for like just a few hours, and it completely polishes up this water, and you can reuse these guys by soaking them in bleach. But as a utility tool, and fairly inexpensive, these Marineland polishing filters do like a really good job. I highly recommend these. This is an example of a couple of the items all together. So we have our 50-gallon Rubbermaid stock tank. we've got the Rubbermaid cart, and we have the Marineland polishing filter. This little simple setup can be run for at least 7 days, no problem. And this, you can do your series of dips or whatever, any kind of treatments that you want to run before letting these guys into your aquarium. I know that a lot of people don't have the space or resources to set up an entire separate system to do quarantine long term. But something as simple as this, being able to just bring coral in, don't even necessarily treat it that first day, just let them settle down, especially the stuff that got brought in from online. That first day of shipping is super stressful. So whenever you're just able to just give it a sec, let it chill out, then you start your dipping process, your likelihood of success will go up exponentially. It's that first day of stress that you would just want to separate out. So something like this, it could be a really inexpensive alternative. Next up, guys, we have these magnetic acrylic acclimation boxes. This is like the big jumbo sized one that we picked up, and they come in surprisingly helpful whenever you're bringing in new fish or whatever, but sometimes it's just as simple as, oh, we have some inverts that we just wanted to house temporarily or something like that. Incredibly versatile. They have a little lid system and a couple of magnets that you can just stick onto the side of a glass tank. So super, super handy. You never know when you have to like isolate something in an aquarium. If you haven't used one of these before, give it a try. And this particular model has like baffles in it, so you can even segment off like 4 different little critters. Obviously you don't want to do fish that way, unless it's a damsel or something, but you have a lot of flexibility with these. Yeah, acclimation boxes, guys. Next up, you guys, we have the Fluke Multimeter. I'm very late to this party, but I found these things incredibly, incredibly useful. So oftentimes what happens is, especially with pumps and heaters, they eventually start to leak voltage. We were having some issues in our fish quarantine system. Things would die here and there, as fish do in quarantine, but it was getting a little weird at one point. So we finally picked up a multimeter, tested the water, and we were running like 60 volts in the water. 40 volts is never a good thing. 60 volts, you're talking about some lethal voltages. And sure enough, it was probably a heater or a filter or a pump or all 3 in combination. Yeah, we had some crummy hobby grade appliances, a couple of hobby grade pieces of tech, and they were just breaking down and leaking voltage. You might be wondering why test something like this when you can just get a grounding probe and that would eliminate all that excess voltage. The reason being is a pump or something or a heater that is breaking down is going to do a lot more than just leak voltage. So when it starts to do that, you need to detect it and swap it out. We went through our entire place and it just checked pretty much every single tank, located every single device that was melting down. If you were wondering whether it is normal to have like a little bit of voltage in your tank like that, it's really not. Because in our big SPS show tank, we have dozens of devices on that. And when we tested that voltage, we were getting under 5 volts. It is definitely possible to have a very electrically clean system. The only way that you're going to know, you got to test for it. So guys, get a multimeter. Next up, guys, I got the Brother P-Touch Edge label maker. This is probably my favorite thing ever. Okay, I cannot say enough good things about this guy here. This is probably the most expensive label maker they make, but it is super, super, super nice. You can make all different sizes of labels. There's like an app for your phone we've never used, but the really, really nice thing is the label tape is waterproof. So all of these labels you can set inside your tank and they basically don't break down, not for months. Usually when we have to replace it, it's because they get covered by coralline algae, not because they dissolved. And we're even able to soak things with these labels in muriatic acid and they still hang on. So incredibly robust. And in a facility like this, there is so much room for confusion that being able just to label anything and everything goes an incredibly long way. So we've labeled all our outlets with the circuit that they belong to. We've labeled filter media just to say what it is, because like somebody will be proactive, like, oh, we need to run GFO on this system. They'll put together some GFO, slap it on the tank. Next person walks in and is like, I have no idea what's in that reactor. Furthermore, even if I did know that there's GFO in that reactor, I don't know when it was installed. I don't know when it needs to be taken off. And you just can't rely on one person having the answer to these things. So we label anything that makes sense to label. Just throw a sticker on it. So guys, the Brother P-Touch Edge label maker, literally my favorite thing right now. Next item on the Amazon shopping list. It sounds like such a basic thing that oftentimes gets overlooked, is just temperature monitoring. And this is something that, that Jake Adams turned me on to when I visited him in Colorado way back when. It's, I can't pronounce this, Capetsma. Nice brand name, guys. But it's a little digital thermometer, and you slap it to the outside of your aquarium. It's got its own little battery, and the glass temperature is essentially the water temperature. So this guy right now, it's a toasty hot day today, so this tank here is running at 79 degrees. We've just been like slowly acquiring more and more of these and just slapping it on every aquarium because it's so handy, especially in a larger facility, to be able to look around and in a moment's glance tell temperatures. You might think, well, how often is that really a problem? More than you might think. Sometimes a heater will go on the fritz in a quarantine setup, but even in one of our 2,500 gallon systems, the temperature probe that was regulating the heating system on it completely bonked out. And ideally, we would have multiple heating probes control that, but we don't. We have one. And it was reading that it was 100 degrees in there, so it didn't feel like it needed to heat. The real temperature was about 70 degrees, and we only noticed that there was something wrong when a purple tang in that system stopped eating frozen food. It's like, well, that's kind of curious. I wonder what the heck is going on. And it was only because it was a really chilly tank. Had we had more of these just stuck on the glass, we would have detected that a lot sooner. This one is a little eccentric. So I am a psycho about sound. I don't like how noisy protein skimmers are, things like that, right? That's why we have it off. So one thing that really helps isolate noise is using a mass-loaded vinyl product. And this is often used in like the automotive industry to quiet down your super loud Honda Accord, for example, right? It's called Dynamat. That's a brand. There's like Killmat and whatever else, but we use Dynamat. And we made a sandwich of Dynamat and closed cell foam. This is the stuff that we set our tanks on. And so Dynamat's like a sticker backing. And so we basically make a Dynamat, closed cell foam, another Dynamat in some cases. And when you set a device like a calcium reactor or a protein skimmer on this, it greatly isolates that vibration. And that vibration is the thing that usually causes all the trouble. So if this guy, for example, didn't have any kind of vibration isolating, the platform that it's on will turn into like a resonance chamber on its own. And so this one single skimmer pump would turn all of this into a huge giant speaker, which is not what I want. So whenever possible, we start to isolate the different devices using these sorts of products. So guys, if you are insane about sound like I am, this is one of the ways that you can go about controlling it. All right, guys. This is the coup de grace. Let's take a look at the cloud ceiling that's in this studio. Now, if you're only here for like the hardcore aquarium stuff, sorry guys, this ain't it. But I know a lot of folks out there had some questions as to how I went about installing this cloud ceiling. So I'll lay out all the little purchases that went into this. It took about 8 months for me to do it. It might be a terrible mistake also, because it's entirely possible that this is going to accumulate a lot of dirt over time and there's no way to clean it. But so far it's been about a year that we've had this and it's still milky white and cool looking, so I'm super happy with it. But in the future, future Than might not like the fact that I had this up and had to take it all down. But anyway, if you guys are curious as to how to do this, let's go over all the different items now. So let's start with the base layer of what's going on. So underneath all these clouds, that bare ceiling, we're first attaching these GoVee strip lights. They are programmable, they're RGB, and GoVee has a pretty cool ecosystem of different programs, and you can customize your own stuff, you can download other people's creations and things like that. These things can react to sound if necessary. We don't have that feature going because we never really liked how that looked. So this is the unironic business setting. So it kind of cycles slowly from like the white to blue and back again. And it's kind of like a chill atmosphere that's not too distracting. But you first start off with installing a base layer. Now, the tutorials that I've seen online, they usually put up like a cardboard type backing so that they don't destroy their apartment. We didn't really have to deal with that, so we could install these LEDs directly to our ceiling. Next up is the installation of the clouds themselves. So we're using a product called Poly-fil. It's more or less what people use to stuff into pillows and stuffed animals and whatnot. How to get all of that adhered to the ceiling, there's a number of different techniques you can use. One is you can use a high quality glue. This stuff will definitely do the trick. It is also the most insanely smelly process you can possibly imagine. It will gas out your whole house if you use this stuff, but it does work. And there were situations when we were doing some of the more, I guess, interesting architectural details, like the multi-layered stuff where we had to use this. But my personal weapon of choice to get the clouds up onto the ceiling was a stapler. When doing a project like this, you never really expect to become like a staple connoisseur, but I am that guy now. So I first started with something that didn't work out at all. Started with this guy. This is like an electrician's stapler, and it fires off a nice big chunky staple. That would be great, but there's like a safety system on this, so it's expecting you to go over Romex before it allows you to fire a staple. Clearly, that is not a great thing for this application. This guy didn't work, but anytime that I need to be stapling in Romex electrical cable, I guess I'm handled now, right? Next up, we have an 18 gauge. This isn't a stapler. This is just I guess it's a brad nailer or a finish nailer. Still useful for a lot of things, not necessarily great for clouds. I used a regular mechanical hand stapler. That was getting exhausting very quickly because I think that for this particular cloud ceiling, I probably fired off, I don't know, 8,000 of these things. So I got the Dewalt, I guess this is called a crown stapler, and this has done a lot of work in this place. It's heavy. And so the reason why it took me about 8 months to do this ceiling is there's only so many times you can do this before your arms fall off. But here we are. All right, guys, that does it from here. I don't know exactly which day Amazon Prime Day is, but hopefully it is going to be published in time for you to do some shopping on Amazon. And until next time, happy reefing. Take care.